Hey guys, Serac here, and today I'm going to bring you my Floowandereeze deck on a budget. This deck is finally affordable for us budget players because Ghost from the Past 2 has been released, and with it, Raiza the Mega Monarch finally got its reprint. So, let's get into the deck. We have 2 copies of Floowandereeze and Mpen. Mpen, if it's tribute summoned, gets to search a Floowandereeze spell or trap from your deck to your hand, and then immediately after effect resolves, you can normal summon any one monster. So we use this to normal summon our floodgates and so on. And then, while it's on the field, your opponent cannot activate special summoned monsters' effects if they're in attack position. All links have to be in attack position. And finally, if this card battles an opponent's monster, banish 1 card from your hand. That monster's attack and defense is halved until the end of the turn. So it's a difficult to beat over floodgate that also furthers your game plan with the normal summoning, searches a spell trap, and of course stops their special summon monsters' effects. The deck is very, very searchable, so we only need 2. Next, we have 3 copies of Floowandereeze and Robina. Robina, if it leaves the field, so all the little Floowandereezes have an effect where they leave the field, they're banished instead. They lock you into normal summoning for the turn. And if they're normal summoned, they give you an effect. And if you normal summon a Floowandereeze monster while they're banished, you get to return them to the hand. From the banished zone to the hand. So, Floowandereeze and Robina, if it's normal summoned, gets to add 1 level 4 or lower winged beast monster from your deck to your hand. Then immediately after that resolves, normal summon 1 winged beast monster. Next we have 3 copies of Floowandereeze and Eaglin. Eaglin, if it would leave the field, banish it instead, and its normal summon effect is, instead of adding level 4 or lower winged beast monsters, we add level 7 or higher winged beast monsters. Then immediately after it, normal summon 1 winged beast monster. Okay, so very, very similar to Robina. For the final Floowandereeze, we have 1 copy of Floowandereeze and Stree. Stree, when it's normal summoned, gets to target a card in either player's graveyard and banishes it. And finally, Tokan, when it's normal summoned, you can target 1 banished Floowandereeze card and add it back to your hand. Then we have our boss monsters. We have 1 Raiza the Mega Monarch. This is obviously searchable off Eaglin and can be normal summoned immediately after using Mpen's effect, which allows you to normal summon any monster. Now, Raiza, if it's summoned by tribute summoning 1 tribute summon, can be summoned by tribute summoning 1 tribute summoned monster. If it's tribute summoned, target 1 card on the field and 1 card in either player's graveyard. And if it was tribute summoned by tributing a wind monster, which all your Floowandereeze cards are, you can target an additional card on the field, place the first targets on top of the deck in any order, and return the additional target to the hand. So this, summoning on your opponent's turn, is what allows you to break their board. You can return itself to the hand with the extra part of the ability to allow you to repeatedly do this every turn. And of course you get to stack your opponent's deck so they constantly brick turn after turn, and you just get to control what they draw. This is the card that wins you the game by just constantly manipulating the top of your opponent's deck and the ability to do it turn after turn by returning itself to the hand, and the fact that you're always going to be tributing a wind monster to summon it. Our next boss monster is Mist Valley Apex Avian. This is a very simple card. You can, when an effect is activated, select 1 face-up Mist Valley card, return it to the hand, negate the activation and destroy that card. Very, very simple effect. Very, very effective Omni-Negate. Again, we can bring it out on our opponent's turn, and it just helps get around so many different things and just those problematic cards that we struggle to get out. But a very, very good card, and another very, very easy to access boss monster, because your boss monsters are so searchable, and they all generally return themselves to the hand. You can easily get them back and keep going through your deck and use them turn after turn after turn. Our final piece is, in the main monster lineup, is 1 barrier statue of the Stormwinds. We don't special summon. And wind is not a very common archetype, except in the mirror. For reference, the Floowandereeze mirror is awful, so you may not want to play this deck if you have lots of Floowandereeze players at your locals. But yes, neither player can special summon monsters except wind monsters. Very, very simple. In combination with things like M-Pen and so on, where we can manipulate attack points of monsters, lock their effects, and just our general disruption cards like Book of Moon, we can very, very easily force our opponent into a situation where they just cannot play the game. For our hand traps, we begin with 3 copies of Dimension Shifter. This is one of the most expensive parts of the deck. It is pretty much mandatory to play the deck. It's what allows us to go second. It lasts a full turn cycle, not just your turn, so you can activate it going first, even before you do anything else. It just makes some decks unable to play the game by forcing everything in their graveyard to be banished. So, your Eldritch players can't play the game, your people who are playing Phantom Knights still can't play the game. Anything that interacts with the graveyard will really, really struggle to play the game under a Resolved Dimension Shifter. It's not an auto-win button against some matchups. It's usually good and will force them into suboptimal plays, but don't feel like you can let your guard down just because you've resolved a Dimension Shifter. For our next hand trap, we're playing 3 copies of Effect Veiler. Again, very, very simple hand trap. We all know what Effect Veiler does at this point, and it's one of the cheapest hand traps that we have access to, because it's got reprinted so many times, so we play it in everything. This could be Imperm, this could be Ash if you own them. The hand trap slots in this deck are very, very flexible. It could even be Ghost Reaper, sorry, not Ghost Ogre, we're playing Ghost Ogre. Spoilers for the next card. If you have access to some of the strong extra deck cards that lots of decks are playing. We then have 2 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. This is obviously very, very good hand trap at the moment. Really, really hurts the Adventurer engine, and was also recently reprinted, which helps keep its price nice and low. And 1 copy of DD Crow. This is just our hand trap that we can search. Obviously, we're a Winged Beast deck. Robina searches any level 4 or lower Winged Beast, so if we already have access to our Floowandereeze engine, we can search a DD Crow and make branded players cry by banishing their Albaz when they summon their Albion. For the spells, we begin with 3 copies of Floowandereeze and the Magnificent Map. During your main phase, reveal 1 level 1 Floowandereeze monster in your hand and banish 1 Floowandereeze card with a different name in your deck. Then, immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon the revealed monster. If your opponent normal summons a monster, immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 Floowandereeze monster. So this is how we play on our opponent's turn, and it's one of the biggest things that Floowandereeze does, is you basically play the game on both your turn and your opponent's turn under the map, as well as the fact that it allows you to banish any of those cards from your deck, which you can then obviously add back to your hand by activating Floowandereeze effects, and then you can normal summon them. So you see how you're just constantly chaining together the normal summons of your Floowandereeze monsters to build up lots of tribute fodder that you can then use to put out your big boss monsters. We then have 3 copies of Floowandereeze and the Advent of Adventure. This says banish 1 Winged Beast monster from your hand or face-up field, add 1 Floowandereeze monster or Floowandereeze field spell, that's called a spoonerism, field spell from your deck to your hand, then gain 500 life points. You can only activate 1 Floowandereeze in the Advent of Adventure per turn. So this, A, is more searching, allows you to get copies of map or other winged beasts that you need, and B, it stops you from being impermed or veilered. And the reason is because Imperm and Veiler both need targets to resolve. Your Floowandereeze monsters don't care if they resolve off the field or on the field. All they care is that they were successfully normal summoned in the first place. So you normal summon your Robina, activate its effect to search, your opponent Veilers it, you chain Advent of Adventure, banish your Robina, resolves backwards, so you search with Advent of Adventure, Veiler resolves without effect because it no longer has a legal target, and then you get to search with Robina. It's very, very important, and one of the reasons why the deck got such a boost with the release of Battles of Chaos. 1 Floowandereeze and the Unexplored wins. This is a funny continuous spell card that lets you conduct tribute summons that require 2 tributes by sending 1 monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls to the graveyard instead of tributing. It's still treated as a tribute summon. Note, firstly, you send any card your opponent controls and a monster you control. So you cannot send your spells and traps, but you can send your opponent's spells and traps. Secondly, it's a tribute summon, but you are sending cards to the graveyard, you are not tributing them. So if there are any restrictions on tributing, you can use this card whilst under those. However, if there are restrictions on tribute summoning, you cannot use those cards whilst this is on the field. Then, during your main phase, reveal 2 winged beast monsters in your hand, place them on the bottom of your deck in any order, then draw cards equal to the number placed, so it allows you to just sort of cycle through your hand, put search targets back into your deck, and dig deeper into starters, into hand traps, and so on. Very good card, and another way how we get to disrupt our opponent very, very easily. 3 copies of Pot of Duality. We don't special summon, so we can play this card, and it's a Pot of Prosperity that costs us 30 pence instead of £90. So yeah, we play this card because it's a very, very good consistency hit, and we don't really care about the downside. Similarly to that, we also are playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. Again, in fully competitive builds, this is Prosperity, but this is £3, and Extravagance is Prosperity, is £90. So we're playing this instead. At the start of your main phase 1, banish 3 or 6 random face down cards from your extra deck. Spoilers, we don't use our extra deck. Then draw 1 card for each 3 cards banished. You can only activate 1 per turn. You cannot draw any cards per card effect after this resolves. So, obviously, this just digs us 2 cards deeper into our deck. Again, gives us more access to starters, more access to hand traps, more access to disruption. We don't use the extra deck really at all, so the downside is pretty negligible. 3 copies of Book of Moon. Target 1 face-up monster on the field, change that target to face-down defense position. Again, this is for stopping targeted interaction with your Floowandereeze cards, so stopping them from being hit by Veiler, Imperm, etc. And also stopping them from stopping your opponent from just running over cards like Barrier Statue. It's very, very easy to obviously normal summon a card that can out Barrier Statue, but with a Book of Moon behind you, now they can't, and you're in a much better position if you can keep the Barrier Statue on the field for longer. So this works both defensively and offensively, allowing you to protect your effects from resolving, almost like a semi-extra copy of Called by the Grave, and also preventing your opponent from outing your difficult-to-out floodgates, like Barrier Statue. 1 copy of Called by the Grave. Again, we need our cards to resolve so badly. It's really, really important. Ash Blossom ruins this deck if you do it at the right time. Veiler ruins the deck if they don't have a way to stop it. It's very, very important that you are able to use this card. And finally, our 1 trap is Floowandereeze and the Dreaming Town. During the main phase, immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 level 4 or lower winged beast monster. If you tribute summon a level 7 or higher monster while this card is in the graveyard, banish this card, change all monsters your opponent controls to face down defense position. So again, this allows us to play on our opponent's turn and start off our normal summoning chains, and secondly, it's another form of interruption that goes to the graveyard. Note, you can use either effect, you can use both effects in 1 turn, so there's nothing to worry about needing to put this in the graveyard before your opponent's turn so you can book all their creatures. You just need to get this card into the graveyard after using its effect, so it's perfectly reasonable. Now for the extra deck. Yeah, it's any 15 cards you own that go in an extra deck for this budget build. There are optimal choices. You will see people playing Entis, you will see people playing Mechaba, you will see people playing Tri-Brigade Shuraig, you'll see people playing a small Dogmatica package to access cards like Dogmatica Punishment. We're not playing those because Entis is expensive, and we're trying to make this deck as cheap as possible. So, for this version, all you need are any 15 cards that go in an extra deck that aren't banned. Okay? They are just extravagance fodder. If you want to improve the deck, you could look at adding some of the more optimal cards to the extra deck. But again, I don't think that will increase the ceiling of this deck by that much compared to adding cards like Pot of Prosperity and Ash Blossom. So the extra deck in this should be the last thing you upgrade. But as I said, any 15 cards, go through your bulk, find 15 random link monsters, and just put them in your extra deck for extravagance fodder. That's all you need to start playing this deck. The number of times where it will be relevant will be very few and far between. So, I hope you enjoyed the Floowandereeze archetype and the deck profile. It's now so much cheaper thanks to Raiza being affordable, and I'll see you again soon. But before I go, one more thing. Floowandereeze Nuts.